Speaker cleaning tutorial. Today's speaker is a NuTone model ISA53. The ISA53 is used with NuTone intercom amplifier models 470, IM516, and IMA516. These are voice-only systems, no master station per se, no built-in radio. However, the IMA516 does have an auxiliary music input, so you can play music from an external source throughout the system. This particular speaker came out of a house on a service call today. The fellow's name was William, and he called because his 516 system wasn't working properly anymore. He couldn't hear the doorbell throughout the house, and the doorbell was tied into the system. And when he tried to operate the intercom controls, sometimes you could talk from room to room, sometimes not. And when you would try to communicate with the front door entry speaker, you'd get a loud squeal on the system all the time. So why was this happening? Well, in William's case, primarily it's an age-related problem. This particular system was installed when the house was built in 1983, and this is the very first time that the system has ever been serviced that he can remember. So the ISA53 is a fairly simple speaker. You have a single volume control on each station. You have intercom, listen, and talk. You have a door switch, which is either off or on, and there is what they call a talk lock button. The talk lock button is a mechanical switch. The way this system operates, there's no hands-free reply on a 516 system. The intercom operates a lot like walkie-talkies. One person would push the talk button down and call to someone in the house, and the person that was responding would go over to their speaker and push their talk button down and respond. The way the talk lock button works is you would push the intercom talk button down and then push the talk lock button in, and mechanically it holds the talk button in the talk position. When you want to release it, you push the talk button down a little bit and the talk lock button pops back out and the button returns to the listen position. 516 systems are a single channel amplifier. That's why you have a door speaker on or off switch. So the way this works is when you want to include the door speaker into the intercom conversation, you hold the door switch in the on position, and then you would push talk to speak to the person at the entry. When you release it, it does have hands-free reply from the entry door, so you can just automatically hear the response. There's no talk and listen switch on the door speaker. So what happens to these? Well, primarily the switches get dirty, and the common telltale sign of a problem is when you push the door speaker on, instead of hearing the background sounds outside by the front door, you get this loud high-pitched squeal on all the speakers. The talk and listen switch, they also just get dirty, and you have intermittent operation, as well as the volume controls, which when they get dirty and you rotate it, you'll find spots where the sound cuts out because you've moved it into a dirty location. So let's take a look at the back. Pretty typical NuTone early 80s design. You have a 3.5-inch 16 ohm speaker. These are the same speaker cones that are used in front door entry stations, so they're fairly common. Here you can see that the speaker was manufactured in 1983, and you have a single circuit board. There are 6 wires on a 516 system, and they are attached under these individual screws, and they're all labeled on the circuit board as to which wire goes under which screw. So let's go ahead and take this board off and take a look at the other. So here's the front side of the switchboard assembly, and what you can see is you have a really typical NuTone potentiometer volume control, and you have 2 matching or identical plunger switches. These are spring-loaded plunger switches. You have little springs at the top, and so when you push them down, they pop back up. You'll often find on a lot of these plunger switches, they have these little white caps on the ends. It covers up the opening to the interior of the switch. This one actually had 2 caps on it when I took it out of William's house. One of them seems to have gotten lost in the van. So to start cleaning the switches, you pop the caps off, and they're just a press fit. And you can use your Deoxit D5 cleaner that I've talked about in other videos, and all you really have to do is spray a little bit into the opening of each switch and manually operate the plunger a few times. Normally when you're doing this at a customer's house, you'll have a rag to make sure you catch the overspray. You don't want to get it all over their walls. And you can usually spray them a couple times each. Now, in the case of today's service call, William had 7 speakers throughout his house. And as I started the cleaning process, I removed each speaker from the wall. I didn't necessarily disconnect the wires and take the switchboard out of each station because I was able to do it while they were still attached to the system. And when I'm at a customer's house, I like to clean the speakers while the system is on and active because you can make a better assessment of how effective your cleaning is being. As I went from room to room, the inside talk and listen switches began to operate better almost immediately. The door talk switches, about half of them still made the high-pitched squealy noise. And so the secret about that is what really happens to these switches is you get a lot of contamination on the contacts inside the plunger body. And again, as I've said in other videos, don't take these switches apart. If you do, there's a lot of little pieces inside, and it's very difficult to get them all back together and back into the body of the switch. And since these type of parts aren't available to buy anymore, if you lose the interior parts or you mangle them or ruin them, you won't be able to put it back together, and then you have a station that won't work anymore. So what happens to the contacts inside the plunger body is over time, over the last 32 years, the metal contacts become oxidized, and oxidation on a metal surface is actually a really good insulator. And the reason it makes the high-pitched squealy noise is because when you push the plunger down and the contacts are supposed to move into their secondary position, the oxidation prevents them from making all of the proper contacts, and the system is basically out of balance, and you get this high impedance whine on the system. When you go to clean them, the whine may not go away immediately, but as I went from room to room in William's house, it probably took me altogether 20 minutes or a half an hour to work on each throughout the entire house and work on all the speakers. And as I did that, I left them hanging out of the wall on their wires, which is fine. And when I got done cleaning all the speakers and I went back to the very first one, the Deoxit D5 cleaner did its job. It started to remove the oxidation from the metal contacts, and the high-pitched squealy noise was gone. And William was very happy about that. So you can certainly clean them and spray them several times, a little bit at a time, and let it work its way down the body of the switch, and you should see some improvement. Of course, while you're doing this, you should clean the dust off the volume control stem and spray a little cleaner into the hole in the body of the volume control, and then rotate it back and forth, and that'll clean up the wire windings inside the potentiometer, which will eliminate the dead spots from where it's oxidized and dirty. This particular speaker, the reason this is at the shop today is this came out of their kitchen location. The kitchen is the speaker that they use the most, and William's wife wanted a new speaker in that location because she doesn't want any problems with this one when she goes to answer the front door. So we replaced this original station with a newer model. It's an ISA53, which was the improved model that came out in the mid-80s, and it has a different switch assembly. One of the nice things about the 470 and the ISA53 systems is that the speakers are all interchangeable, so you can have a mixture of speakers throughout a house. None of these speakers are made any longer, so in the case of today's service call, we installed what we had, which was an ISB53, which she was happy with. Once you're done cleaning the switches, place the circuit board back into the back of the faceplate. You have to make sure that you get the plunger stems back into the little slots from the control switches or control buttons on the front of the speaker. So if you haven't done this before, it's a little tricky. The easiest way to do it is to place the stems into the slots and then sort of rotate it down onto the back of the grill, and then of course you replace the screws. You don't really need to take the switchboard out of the speaker to clean the switches. If you have a decent amount of light, you can certainly just tip it up and spray into the bottom of the switches. You can also, if you think it's necessary, if you manipulate the speaker around the right way, you can spray it down from the top also to clean it from the top, and then you can operate it from the controls on the front. As for the controls on the front, or the buttons on the front, another thing that happens to these stations are, you can see over the years they accumulate a certain amount of grime on them. And you can see if you rub it away, it's actually cleaner. These plastic parts, because of the buildup on them, the plastic becomes sticky, and it's hard for the spring and the switch to overcome the stickiness of the knob. So cleaning these with a damp rag and a little general purpose cleaner, I like to use an orange citrus cleaner. You can clean off some of the residue that's built up on the face of the speaker over the years. Since this was in the kitchen, it's exposed to all kinds of cooking oils and things like that. If it's in a house where people smoke, the cigarette smoke builds up on things and everything gets kind of sticky. So cleaning the grill lightly often helps. Also, make sure that when you replace the volume knob, it's oriented the right way. Normally the tab that indicates the setting at maximum volume, which is fully clockwise, should be set at about 5 o'clock. And of course, when you're all done, you want to take your little white caps and put them back on the bottom of the switches. That helps keep dirt and dust out. I'll have to go to the van and look for the other one. So I hope that you liked this video. If you found this video helpful, please like it on YouTube. If you think it would be helpful to other people, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribing will raise our rankings on YouTube, which means that it'll be easier for others to find our videos and we can help them too. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Oh, I almost forgot. Quick thing about front door speakers. So this is the 3.5-inch NuTone speaker cone out of Williams' front door entry speaker. This is what happens to front door speakers. These holes are from bugs that got up in behind the speaker, and they like to eat the paper. And you can see how the paper is all discolored. When this was new, this paper was dark black. And after 32 years of being outside in the weather, it's bleached out a lot. And you can see I'm not pushing really very hard at all. There's just no life left in the speaker. It's just totally rotted away. While the speaker is still measured out for its proper impedance across the terminals, it's still measured as 16 ohms. When the paper is this rotted and this thin, the fidelity of the speaker as someone talks into it is very poor, and it sounds very buzzy. So this was replaced with a modern NuTone door speaker. Modern NuTone door speakers have plastic speaker cones which hold up better in the weather than the paper ones did. So that's an important thing to check also. And of course, while I replaced the speaker cone in his entry door speaker, I also replaced the doorbell button because 32-year-old doorbell buttons get really crunchy outside and they don't work very well. That's the end. Oh, this was the free bonus footage.